Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mang, and welcome to the second designer diary for On the Backs of Gods, the board game. We could just call it On the Backs of Gods, because that's what it basically will be. But anyways. So last time, we talked about how I wanted to shift it away from worker placement to more area control. And, I did a bunch of work since last week. Still have not play tested it, but I'm hoping that'll be pretty soon. I'm hoping to play test it with a few other people. And in the comments, or the comment, I guess, on the last video was somebody said that it seemed very similar to Civilization. I don't remember if he specified Sid Meier's Civilization or Civilization. Now, most people, when they hear Civilization, think Sid Meier, but Sid Meier was inspired by an old Avalon Hill board game called Civilization back in the 80s. I know very little about that, so I'm going to assume he meant Sid Meier's Civilization, or maybe he said it, I don't remember. I don't know if he meant the computer game or the board game based on the computer game. I've never really played much of anything of the computer game, so I can't say that. But I do have the board game based on the PC game right here, Civilization. This is from 2009? I want it 2010. It's put out by Fantasy Flight, and I have not actually played this game yet. I just picked it up because of that guy's comment, so thanks for that. I'm very susceptible to persuasion. I have not played it yet. Ziggy and I are planning a two-player game in a few days, but I have gone through all the rules. I've set it all up, so I know how to play. I know how it goes. And I think I can say that On the Backs of Gods will not really play anything like this. This is like one of the heaviest games I own at this point as far as complexity, and it goes for like 3 hours or so. And so there are some similarities in that there is a board with various types of tiles. There's water, there's forest, there's grasslands, there's mountains, there's desert, stuff like that. That's pretty much the same. But, and they are kind of randomly set up, although this is a bit more, I mean, each tile is kind of, has a bunch of different types of types of land or water on it. So the tiles are not randomized. Each tile is always going to be the same, but the layout of the tiles and which ones you pick, that's going to be random. So there is a random setup, I suppose. And you are trying to gather up your resources, and you're growing stronger, and your civilization, I guess, is growing stronger over the course of the game. And there are different victory conditions, one of which might be military or economic or cultural, I guess. I mean, cultural isn't really a thing that I have going on. So right now, as far as my victory conditions, which we'll talk about later, is probably going to be more military or economic. But there's always room for growth. And there is technology, I guess, On the Backs of Gods. But implementation is different, and there isn't really a tech tree in On the Backs of Gods. But yeah, the main difference is kind of complexity, and how the game actually plays is very different. Civilization. This is not an area control game at all. This is a 4X game. Expand, exploit, explore, exterminate, I think is what it is. Probably not in that order. There's no really exploring in On the Backs of Gods. Everything is kind of known from the start. I mean, yeah, there are going to be ground missions, but you're not really exploring when you do that. You're just drawing like an event card. Expanding, okay. I mean, I get you're expanding your population and stuff like that, okay. Exploiting, I don't really know exactly the extent of that term as far as a 4X game goes. And then exterminate, I think that's referring to just conflict. So, okay, we're like maybe a 2X game. I don't know. But anyways. So I picked this game up for some ideas. And we'll talk about what ideas I have gleaned from this later on, even though I haven't played it yet. But it also made me think of some other games that I do own. Another one is Chaos in the Old World. This is an area control game. This is, I think, more similar to what we have going on. But the interesting thing that kind of excites me about On the Backs of Gods is it's an area control game that has a lot of player conflict, but also it's an area control game where the areas move, and that I think is kind of cool. It's not just everything set in stone. Like, take Risk. Risk is the titular, or the classic area control game, dudes on a map. Where you're moving your dudes around, you're trying to get more dudes, and you try to swamp everybody, sometimes strategically. But if you just play classic Risk, North America is always there, Australia is always there, Europe is always there, and whoever gets North America wins the game. Or maybe that's just my experience. It's always just kind of static. And the thing that I'm excited about for On the Backs of Gods is it's not ever going to be static. The walkers that are going to be in play is always going to be random. Who controls which walkers is going to be kind of random. Who starts with, what. And then the walkers are going to be moving around, so you're not going to be in range of that other walker that you really need to get to. But, if you wait a little while, maybe it'll get closer and it'll be more exploitable, stuff like that. So it's more dynamic, and I like that. Chaos in the Old World, again, another game I have not yet played. Also because it's for, 4 players and it's kind of complex. What people like about Chaos in the Old World is the kind of variable player power. The asymmetric design, I guess, for Chaos in the Old World. This is designed by Eric Lang. And this is what he's mostly known for, I think. And you pretty much, from what I understand, you have to play with 4 players. Otherwise, you're just screwing it up. And so each of the 4 players controls one of the gods of the old world, of the Warhammer universe. There's Khorne, Nurgle, Tzeentch, and Slaanesh. And each one has... It's basically they're each completely different in both their units, their powers, their methods of actually playing the game are all kind of different, and their methods of winning the game are all unique and very thematic. And so I would like to get a lot of inspiration from this game as far as unique victory conditions and linking unique themes to unique mechanics. So that, just like how each god in this game feels completely different, each walker in On the Backs of Gods would feel different. There's some differences because the players don't really control the walkers directly, because that's thematic. Nobody can really control a walker. We'll talk about a tiny bit later, but that's thematic, is that you don't control the walkers. They're just like a natural force, and you're just playing. I guess it's kind of abstract who you're really controlling, as who are you as a player in this game. I guess you'd be just kind of the local lord of your starting walker, that you'd be the lord of that area. And then you'd be sending out, explorers and emissaries and diplomats, or, military, whatever. Whereas this game's a bit clear-cut. You're just playing a god of horribleness. So yeah, I definitely like to play that. The other area control game that I would really like to play to get ideas, but I don't actually own yet. I'm waiting for the reprint, is El Grande, which is apparently the Grand Duke of area control games. So I need to see how that plays, maybe get some ideas from that. I have 2 other games here that I'm going to show you and talk about, but that's going to be a little bit later. Alright, so let's talk about what I did over the past week. Last time I showed you the walker tiles for Gaia, Minos, and Icarus. This time I'm going to show you 6 more, and this is probably what I'm going to start the playtest with. 9 of them. I'm thinking the final game will have at least 12, because it will go up to 6 players is the idea, and this might go down to 5. I don't know. We'll have to playtest if 6 is just too crowded. And then everybody gets handed 2 walkers at the start. So if it went up to 6, well, I would need at least 12, and that would be everything. And then you would know every walker's in the game. So we might bump it up a little, or we might bump it down to 5 players. We'll see. So, all right, let's start with this one. This is Olympus, Lagos, and Medina. And I have to say, pretty much, probably most names of walkers are going to change if this game ever goes to actually being published. Because a lot of these names are just like so generic and cliche, and just I didn't think anybody would really ever hear it or see it, so most of these are going to change. Olympus is the classic upright walker, the Titan classification. So the people actually live on their its shoulders and its top of its head. And so here, if you look at it, you can actually see I've added another thing below the starting airship and population. That's population capacity. So each walker is going to only be able to sustain a certain number of population between all players combined. And this is, again, thematic, that a lot more people can fit on Gaia and Lagos than they can on Olympus or Icarus or, some others. And so this is also mechanically then to make it a bit more cutthroat. Okay, so Olympus has a population cap of 9, which is probably going to be the lowest in the game. Okay, so its abilities for population then. 2 population gets you a lumber income. 3 is 3 gold income. 5 is another 3 gold income. And then the majority gets the House of the Speaker ability. And this is listed on the lower part of the tile. And this is like really the only instance in the whole setting, really, of anybody having any seemingly control over the walker. And so the player with the majority population on Olympus may choose the dice value for Olympus during the movement phase. And so for the movement phase, where I was thinking about this. It was like, how really clunky do I want this to be? How much time do I want this to take? And so I figured that the way it's going to be is you're going to go around the table. Each person's going to have a certain number of actions, and I'm probably going to break up the types of actions. So I have command actions, purchase actions, and then maybe a move action for any airships. And so you'll be able to use a certain number of those each time. And then once everybody has gone around for their turn, the round is over, and then we go to the movement phase for the walkers. And so a D6 is going to be rolled for every single walker that's on the table. And people can do this all simultaneously. You just roll a bunch and you assign, it's not you just, okay, we have 12 walkers, here's 12 dice, and it's okay, I want this one here, I want this one, it doesn't work like that. But it's okay, here's Lagos' roll, here's Medina, here's Gaia, here's Minos, blah, blah, blah. And then you just put the die on it. And then after each walker has a dice on it, you go through and you okay, ones move first. And so you move every walker that has a 1 on it in that direction, then the 2s, then the 3s, then the 4s, then the 5s, 6s. And if a walker would move into another walker, it doesn't move that turn. And that's pretty much it. And so for Olympus, then, whoever has majority on Olympus just gets to pick the value of the die. So there's some strategy there. If whoever has majority, if they want to move, towards another walker or away from a walker, or they maybe don't want to move at all, something like that. Okay. And then finally, towards the middle, you can see I took out the abilities, the upgrades, and we'll talk about that in a bit. And now I just have a little trading section. This is not between trading with other people. This is only trading with, like, the bank, basically. And so, if you bring a lumber to Olympus and you want to trade it, you can sell it to the bank for 2 gold. An ore you can sell for 3 gold. A gem you can sell for 5 gold. And then that's also the reverse. You can buy a lumber from Olympus's bank, which is just, the general bank. But if you have, an airship on Olympus, you can buy a lumber for 2 gold. You can buy an ore for 3 gold. You can buy a gem for 5 gold. This does not have anything to do then with players trading on Olympus. So if a player on Olympus wants to give you, or if he wants to sell you gems, they might say, I'll sell you gems for 4 gold each, or something like that. Or I'll trade you gems for ores, which you can't really do with the bank. You'd have to, you'd have to sell your lumber and then buy ore, and there's going to be a restriction on how many trades you can do per turn. Because otherwise people will just sit there for like 10 minutes just selling off all their shit and just exchanging it and blah. It'd just be annoying. So there's going to be a restriction. Okay, so then let's move on to Lagos. Starting population 6, starting airship 3. Lagos has pretty damn good airships. Second only really to Icarus because Lagos depends 100% on airships. They do not produce any resources of their own. And they have a population cap of 15, which will be the highest in the game. Okay, so then population 3 gets you 2 gold income. Population 4 is another 3. Population 6 is another 3. Population 10 is another 2, plus 2 gem income. So if you have 10 population, which will likely be the majority, you get 10 gold income just from that, as well as 2 gems, and you get a bonus of an airship plus 1 movement. So you're all about just gold on Lagos. There's a lot of gold to be had there, but you don't get any resources. And so then trading, which for some reason I switched the layout there, but you can buy a lumber for 2 gold, you can buy an ore for 2 gold, you can buy a gem for 4 gold. So they have pretty standard across the board trading, and players with any amount of population on Lagos may perform an unlimited amount of Lagos trading actions on their turn. So this is where you really do the exchange, because that's thematic as to what Lagos is. They depend on trading. That's what it completely is. Again, this will be everything will need to be play tested, and everything will probably be adjusted, and probably nothing in this will really be final, except maybe, no, probably nothing. But anyways, so yeah, Lagos, big population, everybody wants to get onto it, because that's where you're going to get a lot of gold, and it has a lot of population cap, but it doesn't produce any resources on its own. Okay, and then Medina, this is the one that, this was actually kind of tricky for me to come up with, because this was it's a very RPG walker. It works, I think, very well in an RPG setting, but a little tougher to transfer over to the board game, because this is the one that's basically, it's like a large Komodo dragon, I guess, but it doesn't have huge space on its back, so it's not that huge. And this is the one that spends 30 years... This is the only walker that's really on a loop in the setting. 30 years it spends in the Great Desert, which is a very generic name, I know. So it spends 30 years through the Great Desert, and then it spends 10 years going through a nearby jungle or large forest. And so for the 30 years, there's an incredible water shortage. Water is more precious than anything else. And then during the 10 years in the forest, water is just abundant, and the water merchants stock up on as much water as they can because they know how valuable it's going to be for the next 30 years. But even every commoner puts out as many buckets and everything as they can for all the water. Which is fun. I mean, 10 years. Yeah, I mean, these are just numbers I just threw out there. That might be a bit extreme. But the problem was then that water is not a thing in our board game. Like, that's not a commodity or a resource or anything like that. So this was kind of tricky. Starting population of 4, starting airship of 1, and population cap of 10. Okay. Population 4 gets you 2 gems income. So if you start on Medina, all you really get is 2 gems on the start of your first turn. But if you bump up to population 5, then you get an extra 2 combat strength, because the people on Medina are they're hardy, all right? They're basically like desert people that don't actually live on the desert. But they're tough because they've been through a lot of shit. So they get 2 combat strength. So it still doesn't really help you that much. So Medina's not a great starting one, but it's going to be contested. Then if you bump it up to population 6, you get 5 gold income. So there you get some gold. And if you have the majority, you get a combat strength and 4 gold. So technically, if you do start on Medina, you get the 2 gems, the combat strength, and 4 gold. So it's not the worst to start on, but there are obviously much better ones. Trading, 1 lumber for 4 gold, 1 ore for 4 gold, 1 gem for 2 gold. So, gems are basically my way of just like, here, there's going to be a lot of conflict here. Because gems are not abundant on a lot of the walkers. Most walkers don't give you any gems. So the ones that do, because gems are used in a lot of upgrades. So everyone's going to want gems. So the ones that do actually produce gems or give good trading values for gems, those are going to be more contested. And if Medina ends its movement on a desert tile, all players with population on Medina must lose 1 population. On a forest tile, player with majority gains 1 population, not exceeding population cap. This was really tricky. I just could not come up with a great ability, like just a standard trait of Medina. So I went with that to kind of simulate that cycle that goes on. The problem being that there's no way for you to... you could be nowhere near any desert. You could go a whole game and never land on a desert tile. That could just happen. So I could change it so Medina must start on a desert tile, and I don't know. That could be one way to do it, but yeah, anyways. So that's those 3. So then we have the next 3, Moloch, Sakura, and Astaroth. Moloch is another Titan, so it walks upright, but it has basically a large backpack, I guess you could say. It has this, like, people live in this gigantic, huge structure on its back. And, yeah, you could basically think of it as a backpack, but it has openings on all 4 sides, more or less. And so the wealthy people live on the outside, near where there's fresh air and the rain and all that kind of stuff, where it's clean and everything. And the further inwards you go, that's where you get poorer and poorer and poorer. And that's where all the miners are, because the miners are in the middle, and their tools release all these noxious fumes that can't really go anywhere. And so it's just real nasty in the middle. And so Moloch starts population 5, starting airship 2, population cap 13. It's pretty standard stuff. 3 population gets you 2 ore, 4 population 3 gold, 6 population 2 gems, 9 population 3 gold and 1 gem, and then the majority gets you 2 gold, 1 gem, 1 ore. So Moloch's pretty good to start on, but no lumber whatsoever. Trading, 1 lumber is 4 gold. Again, lumber's valuable. 1 ore is 2 gold. 1 gem is 3 gold. Any players on Moloch that do not hold the majority population suffer -2 combat strength when fighting on Moloch or on ground missions from Moloch. So again, this is my thing, like to just make it contested, and this is thematic because if you're part of the majority population, or as in, and this is not the majority of the population, but if you're in control of Moloch, more or less, you're living on the outside, you have access to all the best armor and weapons and things like that, and you're in control of Moloch. So any dissenters, anybody that's not part of that, that faction is living towards the middle, and they have to basically fight outwards at a disadvantage. And so it's tougher for them to take hold of Moloch forcefully. Okay. So that's Moloch. And then Sakura, this is the one that's it's the smallest walker that people know about, aka the smallest one that I've made. This is the one where it's a turtle shell. The turtle has most of his shell intact except for a small opening in the top. And this is where people come in and land, as happened in our RPG campaign. And Sakura is unique because they have a whole bunch of these basically cherry blossoms. And again, this is why I'd have to change the name. But the leaves of the cherry blossoms are razor sharp. And so everybody that goes to Sakura wants to, of course, exploit this for, weapons. They want to make badass, deadly weapons out of it. And in the RPG setting, Sakura is inhabited by orcs that are basically Buddhists. They do not believe in any warfare whatsoever. They don't even want to trade, which is why you see trading NA. Trading does not happen on Sakura because of that. But they're basically Buddhist monks. So if anybody needs assistance, they'll provide it. But if they come to actually take over Sakura, and exploit the trees and take it in warfare, blah, 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 then they defend it with their lives using weapons that they have created using the cherry blossoms and have perfected the use of. Because it's not easy to use weapons like that. Or to make weapons like that. So you start with a population of 2. And you have starting airship of 1. Because technically the orcs of Sakura don't have an airship, but I'm not going to do that to somebody. And population cap of 7. And so I lied earlier. This is the smallest population cap because it's the smallest walker. 1 population gives you +1 combat strength. 2 population +1 combat strength. 4 population +1 combat strength. And the majority gives you 5 gold income. So I'm very interested if somebody were to actually start on Sakura, because you're starting in a rough place, but you do get +2 combat strength, and you can easily get up to that 3rd one. And you do get 5 gold, but you have no way of getting any resources, and you have a very slow airship. So it's going to be damn tough to expand. So I'd be curious on somebody's strategy by starting on Sakura. And here's the tricky part. Each movement phase, the player with the majority population on Sakura must decide 1 population token to be removed from Sakura. This cube can belong to any player on Sakura. I know I use tokens and cubes for population interchangeably because whatever. I'm picturing them as just little cubes because they're small. They won't clutter up the actual walker tile, and so on and so forth. So yeah, this just signifies that this is like, I think Sakura will be the most contested one if anybody's looking for combat strength. It's very small. It's very easy to get, basically most of the benefits that Sakura has. But you'll notice that I should actually change it so that the 4 one is +2 combat strength. Because only 1 person can have the 4 population bonus. If there's 2 people there, because the population cap is 7. And then the majority must decide 1 population token to be removed from Sakura. So that's basically just to go screw yourself. Or maybe that can be bargained for. Things like that. So I like Sakura. It's an interesting one. And finally we have Astaroth. Astaroth is the generic medieval fantasy village walker. It is literally as average and generic as you can get. In the RPG setting, it's a bit more unique. It is a generic medieval fantasy village walker, but there's also there's a very complex set of rules that everybody on Astaroth completely abides by 100%, punishable by death. And so that does not really carry over much into the board game, but I made it just the kind of average starting walker that is decent for almost anything. So starting population of 4, starting airship 1, they don't really use airships too much, and population cap of 12. Again, pretty average. I could bump airship up to 2 if need be, because that is pretty average. I just went more thematic than I probably needed to. All right, so 1 population, 1 gold income. 2 population, 1 ore income. 3 population, 1 lumber income. 4 population, 1 gold, 1 ore, 1 lumber. So again, just across the board, good for just about anything. And then 6 population gets you another 3 gold income, majority, 2 gold, 1 ore, 1 lumber. So if you start on Astaroth, you have 4 gold income, 3 ore, and 3 lumber income. Like, it's not best at anything, you know, and I wanted a walker like that, and Astaroth's a good choice. And then trading, again, very just average. 1 lumber, 3 gold, 1 ore, 3 gold, 1 gem, 5 gold. Very average. All players with population on Astaroth suffer -2 combat strength. This is across the entire board. Like, they just, wherever they are, they suffer -2 combat strength. Because this, again, this is thematic as far as their strict sense of their rules. And so it's like their rules are just like demoralizing. Like in the actual RPG setting, if we had ever gone to Astaroth, it's just a very kind of gloom play. Like nobody's happy about anything. And so that demoralizing effect, I figured, just spreads across your entire force. So there you go. Okay. So that's the 9 walkers that we have. So then let's move on to the upgrade cards. So far I have 3 for every walker, so I have 27. That's probably what we're gonna go into playtesting with. Again, I'm picturing probably 6. I'm thinking 6 for each one. So we'll just go through these first. Gaia, Icarus, Minos. Starting with Gaia, Elven Longbows. You already saw this before. Basically, they can attack. And your first attack is they can't counterattack it because you're attacking from range. 8 lumber, 2 ore, 10 gold. And so I have to bring up a point about numbers. When this is all just theory crafting and you're just doing it all on paper, numbers are just whatever. You know, you just throw out a bunch of numbers. But when you're actually sitting at a table and you're playing it with physical stuff, how many little lumber pieces am I going to need to ship with the game? If you have 6 people and everybody is collecting lumber every turn, you know, at least, you know, 4 lumber income or something like that, you're throwing out a lot of lumber pieces. And so I figure I can either cut back on all the numbers across the board, which isn't too exciting, or you can use really crappy, like even like cardboard pieces. Like just little cardboard chits that have a wood picture on it. You could do that. I could definitely do that. Ziggy thought about what if you just have like a player board. And actually I'm going to have a player board for everybody that you can keep track of your income, your airship movement, and your combat strength. That will all be on your player board, so you don't have to tally up, what's my gold income this turn? It'll be all on your player board. That was just a no-brainer. But he also thought you could have it for your numbers. So, you know, I have 17 lumber. So I just put it here next to the number 17. And, you know, you're making a big player board. The problem with that is fiddliness, which means you have a lot of little things you got to keep moving around. And if your player board gets bumped or something falls on it or anything happens to your player board whatsoever, you're basically out. You're done with the game. Like you're just like, oh well. I think I had this many lumber and this much gold. Like, no. With income, you can tally it all up again if you need to. You can look at the board. You can see where you've got population. You can tally it all up. You can look at any upgrade cards that change it. And okay, I have this much, this much, this much. Okay, we're back. We're good. We're good. But just finite numbers that you can't retally, that's ridiculous. So I had to throw that out, but we could do cardboard chits. I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. I'd appreciate any feedback on that whole suggestion. Okay, so then the harvesting plant, I changed it to gain 1 gold income for every 1 lumber income you possess, just straight 1 for 1, and this will have to be play tested, of course. But this does require 3 population to be placed on that card for you to continue to benefit from that. But that does require 12 lumber, 6 ore, 15 gold, and like I said, gold is easy. Gold can be real simple because you have denominations. You have a bunch of, Usually it's cardboard. Metal would be, metal would be like a Kickstarter bonus or anything like that. But you have little just pieces that say 1, 3, 5, 10, and then it's just 50 gold becomes just 5 little 10 pieces. It's real simple. Gold is easy. You could do something similar for all the other resources, and that might be an idea. But it just doesn't feel great. But it is my first game. I don't know what people are expecting. And, if I do get a publisher, and I'll talk about that at the end of the video. If I do get a publisher, maybe they have suggestions and things like that. Okay, we need to move through this. How long have I been talking? Okay, 35 minutes. So we'll move along. Aggressive deforestation. This requires 4 population, and all lumber income on Gaia is replaced by gold income. So this is like, whoever has this card is just like, no, we're done with the lumber. All lumber is being sold off immediately. And so all lumber bonuses then are just gold. Now you don't get a choice in the matter. Whoever is doing this, they're making decisions. And so if you're on Gaia because you desperately want lumber, you either have to, trade with people. And you can still trade with the bank. You can still trade with the bank and buy all your lumber. Or you can trade with other people. But if you're depending on that lumber income, and say you have the majority and you're like, you want all the lumber, this person is an asshole. And so that's when, coup attempts happen, sabotage attempts, whatever, stuff like that. I thought that was a funny one. Because that was thematic with the original, the RPG setting with the humans on there, where they just wanted to get rid of all the wood and sell it and buy shit. There you go. All right, Minos, pressurized ore, command action. You may spend 3 ore to gain 1 gem. I don't know if this is worth it. People might just think it's better to just trade and go through the money, and this will have to be tweaked, but I want something like that where they can just easily exchange a certain amount of ore for a gem. Just boom, boom. I might change it to 2 ore for 1 gem, but we'll see. Again, playtesting. And then Scorched Earth, that is the same as it was. Actually, this Scorched Earth that the Scorched Earth that I'm looking at, and I'll probably show you since I didn't put any cost into it. I think it's supposed to cost you 5 ore to do it as a command action. Or no, it's a one-shot. So you spend just 5 ore, or maybe 6 ore, and then that's what happens. And again, like I said before, I don't know if it's actually useful, but it's funny as hell to me. It's like some men just want to watch the world burn. Like that's what that card is. And then Dwarven War Axes, very simple. You spend the ore, the lumber, the gold, you get 2 combat strength as long as you have it. So if you are really military-minded, you might just go around to all the different walkers that provide military bonuses, and you might just try to pick up all those. But then you're going to make enemies quick, because people are going to see what you're doing. All right, Icarus has the aerial bombardment. I actually had to expand the description of this. I needed to... I originally was your airships may make sabotage attempts. The problem is I have no idea how sabotage attempts are going to work. And I'll talk about this later. But I changed it to, as a command action, spend a certain amount of gold, up to 20. Roll half that many dice. Each success removes 1 population token of your choice from that walker once per turn. And I thought that was very thematic. But, because you're spending a lot of money to just bomb the shit out of something. And I could change it so that you don't get to pick, but I don't know how that would work, to represent like collateral damage to your own people. But I don't know how that would work. And the whole dice and successes right now, again, I'll talk about conflict resolution later, so I'll just leave that as it is. It's thematic. You can't lie about that. And then experimental weaponry. If you roll enough successes on an attack action to eliminate the enemy completely, they do not get to roll counterattack dice. This might feel a bit too similar to Elven Longbows, except I don't know if it's strictly better. It's just kind of similar, except a little different. I don't know. Because Elven Longbows is just your first attack. Experimental weaponry is whenever you basically eliminate the enemy. They don't get to roll counterattack. Okay. And then basic hydroponics. You Your expand population command action grants an extra population token. Yeah, so that's some new mechanics. There needs to be a way in the game to expand your population, right? That's a given. I think we all assumed that. Because, you know, you're constantly wanting to get more population out to other walkers or on the walker you're on to get new bonuses, or you need population to put on cards, so on and so forth. And so I honestly have not thought a whole lot about how this is going to work. I thought about maybe when you use the expand population command action, every walker that you have population on gains 1 population. But that might just encourage being on every walker as much as possible, which may be what I want, but I would really love some feedback on that as far as what should you do to get more population. And I talked to Ziggy, he was like, maybe I should add another resource like food, and you need a certain amount of food, but I don't want this to become Agricola. Maybe you need to spend something to get population. There's a lot of ways to go. I'm really thinking about it still. All right, Olympus, Lagos, and Medina. Olympus has Prayers Be Heard. This costs 6 gems to get and 2 population. During the movement phase, you may select 1 walker within 3 tiles. You may choose the die value for this walker. So if you have the majority and this card, you can really make things happen. Because you get to do that every turn as long as you have that. You get to pick a walker within 3 tiles. So you can really make some magic happen or piss people off. Then Wealth Displacement. This is a one-shot. Choose 1 other player with population on Olympus. Take half of their current gold, rounding down. This is to do with the real kind of cutthroat people that live on the top of the head. There's very little living space up there, and there's like all the wealthy people of Olympus are up there, and they basically, you know, there's a monarch, but it's constantly, you know, switching hands. Some say based on the wealthiest, and it's rough being up there. And so if you have a lot of gold on Olympus, you might get displaced. Again, playtesting would need to be done because you feel like that would just constantly keep happening. But you do need to spend 5 ore, 5 lumber, 2 gems, which might not be too difficult to get. We'll see. And then finally, Overpopulated just costs 8 gold. It's a one-shot, so people can do this as much as they want to purchase it. Remove 1 population token from Olympus. This does not require any conflict. There's really not a whole lot you can do to block it. It's just boom, done, executed. Just tossed off the side of the walker. We'll see how that goes. But you could easily just slip into a majority bonus from doing that. Okay, Lagos. Lagos is the extremely populated one, and they have the kind of, they have the guild system. So there's the Guild of Merchants, Navigators, Engineers, and Scientists. So the Guild of Merchants, for every trade action other players perform on Lagos, you receive 1 gold. I really like this one. I think that one will be contested to see who's the first person to get that. So if you start on Lagos and you grab that right away, you're good until somebody decides to sabotage it. Guild of Navigators, you get +1 airship movement, which means that with the majority bonus, and if you start there and you get this, you can have 5 airship movement, which I think right now is the highest in the game, which might not be fair to Icarus, but we'll see. And then Sudden Election is a one-shot, 4 gems and 20 gold. If you do not have the majority population on Lagos, you switch population numbers with the player that does. So if you have 3, they have 8. You now have 8, and they have 3. This could be devastating, but the problem is, I think, like, income benefits are received at the start of your turn. So if you do this, and you're hoping to collect it at the start of your turn, somebody could easily just do that. But that's why the cost is kind of extreme. 20 gold is quite a bit, but maybe not so much on Lagos. Again, playtest everything. All right, Medina, water for the wealthy. Each other player with population on Medina must pay you 5 gold to remove 1 of their population cubes from Medina. So this is linked completely to the water merchants. The water merchants on Medina are the most just evil shit people you can imagine, because they're elves, and I hate elves. But yeah, they just gouge everybody else on Medina for water. They have it, you don't. You need to survive. They want your money. So you either pay them the money or you die. And that's what that card is. Private Reserves. This is an ongoing card. You are immune to the population loss from Medina's abilities and Drought Crisis cards. So the Crisis card, which we'll talk about in a bit, would be basically the same thing where everybody has to lose a population. Unless you have private reserves of your own water. Again, everything's linked to... It's all very thematic, and that's what I really want to go for. Finally, looking for better life, you get +1 airship movement. Because you just want to get the hell off of Medina. So there you go. Alright, finally, Moloch, Sakura, and Astaroth. Sakura, Forceful Peace. No players on Sakura may attack one another. As an ongoing ability. This is the Buddhist monks, the Buddhist orc monks, just coming out and shutting shit down. I imagine this will get sabotaged real quickly. Cracks in the Shell. When activating Sakura's ability, 2 population cubes must be removed. This is an interesting one. Because if you have the majority on Sakura, you might want this to just keep it clear. Be like, you know... Because think about it, there's only 7. So if you have 4 people on Sakura, the other person has 3, and you use this ability to remove 2 of them down to 1, that's pretty good. I mean, you're pretty set. I don't know how this will all come into play. We'll have to see, but it makes me very excited. And then finally, Unique Pugilism. So this is the monks actually teaching you shit. When rolling combat rolls, 6s count as 2 successes. So it's kind of like a shotgun from Arkham Horror. But it costs 7 gems. Because apparently those are sacred to the Buddhist monks. So that's the only currency they'll accept. Alright, Moloch. You might recognize some names on Moloch's cards. This is me just being lazy one night when I first came up with the thing. And I was like, I need like... because there's 4 sides to Moloch. And so... Moloch has 4 lords that basically each control one side. One controls the military, one controls the water, one controls trading, and one controls agriculture. And so it's like, okay, 4 lords, 4 kings, dark souls. We have 4 names. There you go. So yeah, in my document, it's Ornstein, Ciaran, Goff, and Artorias. That's it. Okay, so Ornstein's funnels. Ornstein controls all the rain on the top end of Moloch. So your expand population action on Moloch generates an extra population token. This is very similar to the hydroponics thing, but yeah, there you go. Ciaran's favor. Ciaran controls all the trading and airship movement on Moloch. So you may purchase goods using Moloch's trade actions for 1 less gold each. So lumber's 3 gold, ores 1 gold, gems are 2 gold. So if you want to do a lot of trading with the bank, you might want to get that. And finally, Distract the Guards is the one-shot. Launch an attack on another player on Moloch, ignoring the negative penalty if you do not possess the majority. This is 14 gold, but if you want to take over the majority on Moloch and you possess the gold, that's going to be your best bet. So I wanted an option there to kind of circumvent the things. So that's that just distracts Artorias' guards. And finally, Astaroth. This has kind of the virtues and stuff. So if another player initiates a battle with you on any walker, they must immediately lose 2 population tokens. These do not have to be a part of the battle. So this is the virtue of justice. I mean, you're stretching the thematics on this one. I know. I really know, but I needed shit for Astaroth, so there you go. They have the virtue system. I figured that was interesting. That is only if they initiate. If you initiate it, nothing happens. So this might be the option you want to go for if you want to just be the peace lover. Or you could just be the warmonger and people just have to, accept shit if they try to attack you. Either way. Virtue of Sacrifice. Each player with population on Astaroth must lose gold equal to half of their gold income value. This is a one-shot. This is everybody. So this is including you, but, if you really want to just hurt other people on there, be like, oh, well, you got to give to the church. We all got to give to the church half of our money. Not half of your current money. It's gold equal to half of your gold income value. So if you don't have much gold income value at the time and somebody else has a huge amount, that could be much more devastating. Again, this might change to just half of your gold, but we'll see. And then finally, Subsistence Agriculture. Immediately gain 3 population tokens on one Astaroth, not exceeding population cap. So this was kind of a unique thing amongst all the cards that I came up with, is just an immediate population benefit. You spend ore, lumber, gold, but boom, there it is. And it's a one-shot, so anybody could do this on Asteroth. Okay. So those are all the upgrade cards that I have right now. Again, I'd love any suggestions for new ones. I think you have a fairly decent idea about the 9 different walkers and how they're all kind of unique. But I will answer any questions, of course. Finally, the last thing I want to talk about as far as what I've come up with, and this is incomplete as of this video, these are the crisis cards. So this is something I talked to Ziggy about, because he wanted something that, you know, when there's a certain, you know, you have all these different population. You know, you have these people that are all kind of inhabiting a walker, and it's an uneasy alliance. He wanted something to kind of erupt. That each walker has its kind of own unique crises. And so I figured it was like, well, you know, I just put in this thing where each walker has a population cap. So how about once that population cap is reached, you draw a crisis card. And the crisis cards are going to be things where each player that's on that walker can contribute to it if they want to, or they can just kind of accept the penalties, you know. And if it screws over somebody else more than it does you, you might just be like, go screw yourself. I'm not helping you. So just more of that kind of just, I hate you and everything you stand for mentality. That's what I'm going for. But if everybody's kind of getting along on a walk and we just like, hey, we don't want anything bad to happen, we all just want to sit here peacefully, let's all just contribute. Something like that. So on Gaia, we have a fire breaking out. Kind of, it's, you know, makes sense. It's bound to happen, right? When you have that many people in just a giant forest. A fire's going to break out eventually. So players with population on Gaia must collectively contribute 20 gold to stop the spread of the fire. If the players cannot or will not come to an agreement, each player loses 8 lumber. This will have to be play tested as far as when do you decide that you can't come to an agreement. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's not, I mean, you could, like, Cosmic Encounter just says you have 1 minute to come to a deal, you know, something like that. And the game doesn't come with a timer or anything just like that. You just be like, okay, you have 1 minute, you know, or you have 1 minute, okay, go ahead. You know, we could do something like that. The players have 1 minute to come to an agreement. So yeah, this is very, like, this was the first one I came up with because this is very clear cut. It's you either contribute gold or you lose lumber. Now, if one player really wants their lumber, they don't want to lose anything, but they have a lot of gold, they could just contribute it all themselves. But the most of the idea is that they do it as a group so that each player doesn't lose lumber. But if you don't have any lumber and the others desperately need it and want to hold on to theirs, you can just be like, let it burn. I kind of like that whole idea. All right, Minos dug too deep. This is basically, yeah, it's Moria. All right, it's Moria. We all get it. It's a Balrog, sure. The expanding population has forced the miners to dig deeper than ever into Minos in order to create living room. Unfortunately, they unearthed something dormant. A 10-strength creature has begun to tear through the lower parts of Minos. Players with population on Minos may contribute combat strength to the fight. Casualties may be spread amongst the participants. Yeah, so very simple. It's just a Balrog. Players have to deal with it, or they could just let it kill you. Kill off things. We'll talk about conflict resolution very soon. I'm itching to talk about it. Finally, Icarus, the religious war. This is very, I mean, it sounds like it doesn't make any sense for Icarus. It's just something that's in the RPG. It's part of the whole setting. It was the main thing there. A new religion has erupted on Icarus and is rapidly growing. Its proponents yell in the streets about the danger of technology, and riots are beginning to break out. Players with population on Icarus must come to an agreement. Option A, make peace with the new cult and eliminate any dangerous technology in possession. Each player on Icarus suffers -2 combat strength. Keep this card in play as a reminder. Option B, crush the cult with force. Players might contribute combat strength to fight a strength 7 enemy. Yeah, very thematic. You either, you know, side with the cult and listen to what they have to say and you abide, or you just say screw it and kill them. I imagine most players are going to want to kill them. But if they want to hold on to their majority and they think that maybe, you know, they might suffer more casualties or something like that. Yeah, I realize there's not really an option for a player to sit out on this one, but they might just vote for option A. But yeah, anyways. Okay, so that's what I have so far. I still need to come up with the rest of these crisis cards. For the first playtest, I'm only going to have like 1 of each. And then I need to come up with the victory cards, as well as some ground mission cards. And the ground mission cards are where the setting is really going to come out, where I really just get to go hog wild with, you know, the crazy stuff that's in there. And, you know, all the giant bugs and, you know, the things that dwell in the nearby mountains or under the water in the forest, you know, the giant six-legged alligators, and, you know, stuff like that. That's where I get to really go crazy. Okay. So my two main issues right now with the game. One is information overload. In the sense that when players sit down and they start playing, is there way too much information available to them? Because, I mean, when you first sit there and you get handed your two walkers, that's pretty simple. You can look at the two walkers. You can see this one gives a lot of ore, this one gives a lot of gold, and is like trading. Okay, that's pretty simple. And then you get your victory card, and there might be a choice of 2 victory cards, or it might just be 1. We'll see. And then you get to pick where you want to place the walkers, and there's some strategy there, but it's not like chess or anything like that. And I don't think players will really overthink that. Maybe somebody will, but those players overthink everything. So then you got your walkers on the board, you picked your one that you want to start on, so on and so forth. But then it comes to your turn. What do you want to do? You have to pick, you know, do I want to expand a lot on this walker? Do I want to trade a lot on this one? Do I want to send my airship in this direction, or this one, or this one? Go to this walker. And you have to look at, well, you have, like, in a 6-player game, you have maybe 11 other walkers, and you have to look at each one of their benefits. Like, oh, this one gives all this population benefits, and this one has this ability. And then every walker has like 6 upgrade cards to it. And this, I think, is going to be public information. Anybody at any time can look through the upgrade cards. Because this will help you decide, you know, do I want to go to this walker? Oh, this one has this card that lets me do this, but this one over here is, you know, I have to, let me look through all these 40 cards, or, you know, some shit like that. And it's like, is there too much information available? And after going through everything in Civ, I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if I should feel bad, because there's a lot of shit in that. And there's a lot of shit in a lot of games. This is something I have to play test with, you know, see other people's feedback when they look through it and just see how it goes. But that's a concern of mine. The other big concern that I have is conflict resolution. Conflict resolution, mainly as far as combat goes, but also as far as ground missions go, and just how do we resolve things? Rather than just spend amount of money, you know, how do we actually, when one player wants to fight another, what happens? And so, like a year ago or so, I would have had nothing in my head would have had anything to do anything with, I would have known nothing. But now I'm knowledgeable. Actually, I'm not really, but I have a bit more knowledge. There's 2 types of conflict resolution as far as I understand it. There's luck-based, which is generally using dice. So the classic example is Risk. In Risk, you throw your guys at their guys, and you both roll dice, and defender wins ties, and you keep whittling each other down, and the dice determine pretty much everything. So if you've ever played Risk, I guarantee you've had this experience where somebody has a huge army, goes up against a guy with a little army, and the guy with the huge army loses because of the dice. And they generally flip something over and they swear a lot. This is Risk. I'm not saying that my thing is going to be a lot like Risk, or at least I hope not, but that's the classic luck-based conflict resolution. Okay? The other type is deterministic. This is much less common than luck-based. This is where dice are not used, and there's really no randomness to it. I can't really give a great classic example, because classic games didn't really do this. Dice was so just there. And so here I'm going to bring out my last 2 game examples. The first is Cyclades, or Cyclades. Another game I have not played. Yes, I know. I have not played many of my games. Cyclades has luck-based conflict resolution. Basically, it's similar to Risk. You throw your guys at their guys, and you both roll a dice, and whoever rolls higher wins. But there's luck mitigation. This is the main key that modern game developers have really started to understand. Luck mitigation, in the sense that you have some amount of control through the course of the game or during the course of the battle as to how you can mitigate bad luck. In Cyclades, I think there are certain cards that can help you. There are certain buildings that you could have constructed where you could fight that would give you benefits. And whoever has more units in the fight, I believe, they get a bonus to their dice roll. Either way, you only roll one dice, and it's actually, I think, 0, 1, or 2. But all these bonuses could give you a higher number. So if you roll a 0, you could still win, even if they rolled a 2, if you have all the bonuses. So that's luck mitigation. So again, I haven't played this game, so I don't know how it actually plays out, but it's a very well-received game, so I have to think it's pretty good. So that's luck-based with luck mitigation, which I, of course, would have. That's part of like the combat strength and stuff like that, combat bonuses. All right. Now the other example, deterministic combat, and this is very interesting, is Kemet or Kemet or Kemet, you know, however you want to pronounce it. This is from the same exact company. It comes in the same exact type of box. I don't think it's the same. No, it's a different designer. But I think there's actually like a conversion to get Kemet monsters in Cyclades. They're very similar. They're actually both area control games as well. They're both dudes on a map. And Kemet, or Kemet, I'm going to say Kemet, has deterministic combat. There's really no there's no dice. There's no dice rolling in here. In this game, when you go into combat, it's a lot like Risk, where you have a certain amount of guys, they have a certain amount of guys, and your number of guys contributes to your combat value. But then each player has the same identical hand of cards. And you both play a card face down, you flip it over at the same time, and each card can boost your combat value by a certain amount. But you know pretty much exactly what the other player has. Game of Thrones has the same system. So each player has a card that might do +3. And so this basically boosts your combat value by +3. So if the other player has already played their +3 in another battle, and they haven't gotten that card back, you know that they don't have that. So there's some, there's strategy there. There's no luck. Now, yeah, it's not really luck. You don't know exactly what they might have or what they might play, especially if they have all their cards. But, you can see, like, if I play this card, there's no way that they win because I have more guys than him. His +3 just can't beat it. I don't need to use my +3. So there's like, it's deterministic. Now the way that Kemet mixes it up is that there are these little cards called Divine Intervention. And these do all sorts of little shit. You actually like put this card underneath the regular card when you put it face down. And so the other person doesn't actually know whether you played it or not. It's like sleight of hand. It's hidden. And so that is how that gets mixed up. So that's even like more crazy. Like that's deterministic with double determinant. It's crazy. Again, I have not played Kemet. One of these times, very soon, we'll get all these area control games out of the way to help my design. But these are the basic 2 modern examples that I own that I could give you for the way the combat differs. So it's a really big question in one of these area control type games as to how do you want to resolve conflicts. Now, in those 2 games, like, the only conflicts come from you and other players. Okay, that's pretty much it. In my game, we have that, but then we also have these ground missions, or we have these crises, where these other conflicts can arise from the actual game. And so I need a system that works both against other players and also against the game. So it's basically like if you took Arkham Horror and then added PvP. I need a system that works for that. And so, yes, probably for right now, in my head, the way that it works is you just roll a number equal to how many people you're putting into the fight, and then you add a number of dice equal to your combat strength bonuses or negatives, and then, 4, 5s, and 6s are successes, or 5s and 6s are successes, and others is a fail. And, you know, if you get a hit on them, they lose a guy. If they get a hit on you, you lose a guy, and it's very risk-esque. And I don't like this, but I don't want to just rip off somebody else's, you know, I don't want to rip off the Cyclades system, even though it's very good. So I'd love any ideas or thoughts, suggestions, feedback about anything related to that, or anything related to anything I've said or haven't said. Any comments are appreciated. Yeah, so it's a long road yet to go. But the final thing I want to mention is I recently ordered, I was looking for a bunch of like Roman coins, Roman metal coins that I could use for playtesting, that I mentioned, like have 1, 3, 5 written on it. And so I found a site called Minion Games that are apparently a publisher, but they also sell some like accessories and things like that. So I ordered a set of Roman coins from them that were exactly what I wanted. And it was reasonably priced, I thought. And so they sent me, they shipped it off, and they sent me the shipping confirmation email. And I looked at where they were shipping from, and it's about 15 minutes from my home. And I was like, wow, holy shit. So I went to the actual website, and I looked at their About Me, see what, you know, what these guys were about. And they said, actually, I want to read their description word for word. Okay. Minion Games is based out of the Milwaukee, Wisconsin area. Minion Games was created by a team of friends and designers to bring new and interesting games to the market. We specialize in games dripping with theme that mix direct conflict with Euro-style gameplay. Now, if that freaking doesn't describe On the Backs of Gods word for word, then I'm an ass, all right? So I think, like, once I get this a little play-tested and a bit further along and stuff like that, I might contact these guys and be like, you know, do you want to... I can just walk in there with it in a box and maybe show it off to them, see what they think about it, if only to get their opinion on it, you know, if they even think it's worth pursuing or something like that. I mean, the games that these guys have published, there's nothing huge. They did the Manhattan Project, which is a fairly well-known, well-received worker placement game. They're about to do Dead Men Tell No Tales. The other kind of stuff I haven't Hegemonic, I've heard of. They haven't really, I don't think they have really a huge hit on their hands yet, but that could be On the Backs of Gods. All right, well, if you stuck through this whole video, I appreciate it. Again, leave any comments you think that you want to say to me, even if it's just, this sounds good, this sounds like shit, it's something. Yeah, it was over an hour I've been talking about this, but it's something that I'm passionate about. I hope that you know, that comes across, and I think that's a good sign if you're passionate about something. But it's going to be a long and hard road. I understand that. And even if it ever does get published, it might only sell like 200 copies or something like that. But I would have actually accomplished something in my life, and maybe that's what I'm looking for. So, my name is Mang. This has been the On the Backs of Gods, the board game designer diary. And I'll see you fine folks next time.